Good morning, everyone. We were not going to miss taking advantage of this incredible weather. We were just mentioning, Senate Majority Leader Miller mentioned how great it was to see these children back here at the Capitol and to have things feel that way. So it is a great day. I'm just really proud to be standing here. We have Leader Winkler with us. As you all know, Speaker Hortman still has one more day of quarantine from COVID. She's doing great. She was actively engaged in all this. If COVID did anything, we learned how to negotiate in some different ways, taking calls on boats and continuing to work through this and on Zoom calls. But I'm just really proud to be here today to announce kind of this global deal. I know that all of you, and you'll hear it, there's an awful lot of the hard work of democracy yet to be done this week, but the parameters have been set, and they've been done in a way that, again, I think should make Minnesotans proud. It may not look like it from the outside, but there's nobody else in the country dealing with this dynamics in their politics in terms of a divided legislature and then a difference between the governor's office. But in the midst of all that, I have to give a huge amount of thanks and gratitude and lift up the leadership of Senator Miller's work. He approached this negotiating in good faith, with respect, passionately making the case for his constituents and his belief of what's best for Minnesota, as did Speaker Hortman, the exact same way. The good news on that is we may not be arguing and making the passionate plea for the exact same thing, but the belief of both these leaders of what was best for Minnesota was clear, and what came together in a compromise serves a much broader group of constituencies. In a time of historic surpluses, in a time of economic uncertainty, the prudent and I think mature approach to this is to recognize Minnesotans need money back in their pockets right now. It makes sense to do that. The advocacy on some returned money to get back in the pockets, some long-term tax cuts, especially targeting that middle-class folks, was an argument that is a solid one. And then also making sure that we're investing and reducing costs in things like education, making sure we're focusing on public safety, and then allowing the legislature to work some of these issues with the experts that set up in that building. I've said it time and time again, from things like opioid addiction. We have members of the legislature who are nationally recognized for their advocacy in this. We have a world-class transportation system that is going to get better as we use the federal dollars from the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act. All of those things are win-win-wins. And I know the criticisms would be, well, you compromised on these things, compromised. I don't view that as a criticism. I think that is mature legislating. I think it takes leaders of courage and vision, which we saw out of Senator Miller, out of Speaker Hortman, and then the team that was there. We relied so much on, and I want to thank the folks at Minnesota Management and Budget, Jim Showalter, Anna Mingy, our budget director, and then all of the staff members. There's so many times in these meetings we turn and we say, Eric, what do these numbers mean? And we get those nonpartisan staff, fiscal staff, that help us walk through that. Always focusing on what were the best interests for Minnesotans. But I think in this regard, too, I think one of the pieces of this compromise that I think shows great foresight and it shows great restraint, to be quite honest, in negotiating and in politics, was to keep money on the bottom line in case the economic forecasts are the way they're looking, don't put the state into a bad situation. So I think this is just a win on so many fronts. And I think, again, I can't say enough, this gets tense. You get personalities in this. People are passionate. And with legislative leaders, they have to go back and please a broad spectrum of beliefs inside their caucus, all while figuring out how to get enough votes to get this thing over the line. That is difficult. To be able to do it shows an incredible amount of leadership. And with that, I'm just proud to give you the Senate Majority Leader, Senator Miller.
Thank you, Governor. Good morning, everyone. Since the budget forecast was released showing a massive budget surplus for the state of Minnesota, Republicans were really focused on ideas to put more money back in the pockets of Minnesotans. We wanted to give those surplus dollars back to the people of the state of Minnesota. We are very pleased that this agreement includes permanent ongoing tax relief, so hardworking Minnesotans have more money in their pockets every single paycheck, week after week, month after month, year after year, especially at a time when Minnesotans are struggling with record rates of inflation. And in addition to putting money back in people's pockets, there are some other critical issues facing our state. Violent crime is absolutely out of control. Kids are falling behind in the classroom. We're hearing from nursing homes and long-term care facilities and disability service providers that they're facing potential permanent closures. So the other thing that this agreement does is it makes targeted investments in areas that will affect people all across the state of Minnesota at a time when they're needed most. Now, we have the framework of this agreement in place, but there is still a tremendous amount of work ahead. We are encouraging the conference committee members to get to work. They've been working over the weekend, trying to get together with their counterparts in the House. My message to them, my message to the conference committee members is focus on areas of agreement. There is not much time to get this done before the end of session. Some of these larger bills need to be agreed to and wrapped up probably by Wednesday at the latest. So conference committee members should continue working, focus on those areas of agreement so we can get these bills wrapped up, passed through the House and the Senate, and to the governor to the governor's desk for his signature. So all in all, a very good agreement and very good for the people of the state of Minnesota.
Thanks, Senator. Leader Winkler.
Good morning. We are looking at a budget agreement today that will help Minnesotans better afford the cost of living, to help them afford child care and housing. We are looking at a budget agreement that will help Minnesotans recover from two of the toughest years in our state's history. House Democrats from the very beginning have been focused on making sure that all Minnesotans have a safe community where they can thrive and be successful, and the investments contained in this budget agreement will make a big difference in the lives of millions of people. We know it's not enough. We know that we have a continuing need to support families through paid family and medical leave and earned sick and safe time. We know that our frontline workers waited too long for help from the state, but we are committed to continuing in this work. We know that in our fourth year of divided government, we can continue to make progress if we are persistent and understand that we cannot give up on our core values as Democrats, and we are not doing that. In fact, we are setting the stage for continued investment in the years ahead by limiting the size of tax cuts, focusing on education and health care, and leaving enough money on the bottom line to avoid future deficits. The real issue here in this election, not in this election, this budget year, is whether we could do work for Minnesotans and leave election year politics behind. And I want to thank Governor Walz for insisting that we do that. I want to thank Senator Miller for coming to the table to be responsible and help us get this done. And of course, personally, I want to thank Speaker Melissa Hortman for being the glue in really challenging circumstances through many years, and her ongoing commitment through having COVID herself and getting this done is a testament to her dedication to public service. We do all agree that the welfare, livelihoods, and health and safety of Minnesotans is our top priority, and this budget agreement represents a compromise that allows us to move forward. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Leader. We've been joined by Lieutenant Governor. I would have to say our lead on children and family issues, and we're proud of this budget. Again, you hear the wide spectrum of needs that'll be serviced and beliefs amongst these caucuses of what they got out of this. I think that's really good. I also would note the Lieutenant Governor is here to be an eyewitness to my fish story if it's asked about, so thank you for that. I'm grateful. So please, any questions of any of the leaders?
And leaders, what's the composition of the permanent tax cuts versus, I assume, targeted? Are you going to decrease the rate on the bottom bracket, or explain? Has that any of that been decided?
So those details will be worked out in the conference committee. Republicans are focused on permanent ongoing tax relief, again, so people have more money in their pockets every single paycheck, week after week, month after month, year after year. The details, not only in the tax relief package, but in most of these packages, will continue to be worked out as the conference committee process plays out.
Of the $4 billion, how much have you got for dollar amount? Have you got a dollar amount for permanent tax relief versus targeted?
We have a pretty good dollar amount, but it's not finalized yet, so we'll let the conference committee work through those details.
Is it half and half?
Again, we'll let the conference committee work through those details.
The committee has directions from you guys.
Is
Is there direct payment?
Yeah, and I think you folks here, and this is the one to help convey this to the public, this is the system working right. These decisions were not made in a triumvirate behind closed doors. We had to set some parameters. We're not telling you that this isn't going to be hard this week. There's some hard decisions. I still feel very strongly that we need to have some one-time money right back in the buckets of folks right now. I agree with Senator Miller on this. I think there is a role for some permanent tax cuts, especially if they're targeted to families with children, and some of those things. I think there's a lot of things that have been put out there that make it pretty clear what we'd like to see. It's going to be tough work. It's going to be round the clock up here. They're going to have to reach some compromise, they being the conference committees, but we're leaving that open to them. I think the system works best if we do that, but I think many of you are anticipating some of the pitfalls here that could possibly be, but this is a big first step to get it to there to set those parameters.
Still in discussion, or are they
Yes.
off the table?
Yes. No, they're still in discussion.
Miller, no dollar amount to those at this point with the amount you have for tax cuts in general?
So again, Republicans are focused on permanent ongoing tax relief. We know that's going to be a big part of the tax relief package. We need to get some more guidance from the conference committee members, and we'll see where things shake out. But there have been no final decisions on really anything at this point. Otherwise, we'd have the bills done and on the governor's desk already. So there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of work to be done this week.
Do any of these buckets have dollar amounts? Is there a broad dollar? Okay, so the dollar amount to tax cuts, to nursing homes, to kids, to early child. You
Well, they're
are
part of that.
assigning
We have the
buckets.
framework in here. 1.6 billion in the first year, 2.4 in the second. For a total of 4. That's on the spending. That's the same number for the tax cuts and the money going back. Now, inside there, again, there's a lot of work to be done. There were some parameters set on floors and ceilings, depending on which side you view on it, that's saying this is how much is going to be spent. $1 billion in education, a historic number, never been done before. Outside of a budget year, and it follows last year's historic number. They'll have to decide inside those parameters. That's where the real work's it is happening right now.
But it tests believability that you guys send just a raw number out, that Senator Miller doesn't say, but
Come here Monday.
Huh?
Come here next Monday.
Well, yeah, I know. That's when you'll tell
them an
us.
opportunity, Peter.
When you'll tell us. But why don't you tell us now that you've said there must be some checks, and you've said there must be a permanent tax rate cut, and you guys have said there must be some targeted stuff. You didn't just send a number out. You didn't agree to just send a number. You must have agreed that end result must have everyone's priorities.
Here's what we did. I don't think anybody wants 3 or 4 people making these final decisions. We've heard that loud and clear. So we've set the framework with some high-level parameters for the conference committees. You have Republicans and Democrats on those conference committees from the House and the Senate. The governor's administration, they'll be involved in that process. So we need to give the conference committees a little bit of time to work through the process. Now, if they can't reach a decision, then maybe some of those decisions will be kicked up to us at some point. But our hope is for much of this work to be done through the conference committee process.
You mentioned nursing homes, Senator, quickly, if I could follow up. You mentioned nursing homes and addressing the crisis there. Does that mean it's the Senate position? Because House and Senate are far apart on dollars.
It is a top priority for Senate Republicans to address the crisis facing our nursing homes, long-term care providers, and disability service providers.
Deal, though? You mentioned
It is a priority of the Senate. It has not been agreed to by leadership that there's a dollar amount specific for this, other than $1 billion being spent in the health and human services area over the course of the next 3 years.
The way this works is we have people on these conference committees who are subject matter experts. They know what can move around in bills in order to accommodate as many priorities as possible. It's the same thing that's going to happen on the tax bill. From the House standpoint, Paul Marquardt and Cheryl Joachim are going to be focused on getting a package together that meets the needs of the majority in the House and make sure that a bill can pass when it comes back. That means we are going to be focused on helping people who need help the most. We know that give and take will be part of this process, but the people who know how to do this are the ones on the conference committees. They have a clear idea of the timelines, and they have a clear idea now of the money. And if they get stuck, then getting back into this more detailed level of leadership decisions happens. But until they're stuck, it is up to them to figure this out.
Mr. Leader, another important thing for Dems, for Republicans too, is education. You got $1 billion in there. Have you got how much on the formula versus the literacy things that Senator Miller wants? Have those decisions been made yet?
There's no budget area where there's a bigger difference in dollar amounts, I think, than in education. I think it's going to be up to Senator Miller to convince Senator Chamberlain to spend $1 billion in education.
Okay, well,
let me talk about education real quick. Education has long been a priority of Republicans and Democrats in the legislature, and the focus in the Senate this year has been on literacy. When 40% of the kids in the classroom aren't reading at grade level, that's very concerning. It's concerning for all of us. That's why the Senate was laser focused on literacy and helping kids read better by investing in our teachers, making sure they have the tools they need to teach our kids the skills they need to be successful in the classroom and beyond. The other thing I think we've all been hearing about in education is related to the special education cross subsidy. We're hearing it from school districts across the state of Minnesota. I think we can find some common ground on that area. So there are a lot of areas where Democrats and Republicans can come together and focus on what those commonalities are that we're hearing from the people of the state of Minnesota, and I think that's what the focus will be on. And again, we don't have a lot of time. We have a few days to get this all wrapped up. So the conference committees are working through the process as we speak. As Leader Winkler said, the Democrats from the House are going to bring forward their priorities. The Republicans from the Senate are going to bring forward our priorities, and they're going to have to work together, and the governor's office, and we're going to have to find areas of common ground and wrap these things up relatively quickly and move on.
Mr. Leader, are you
a deadline for wrapping up the conference committees? Have you told the negotiators how much time they have?
It depends on the bill. We have an earlier need to get an HHS bill complete because it takes so much longer to draft and get it out. So we don't have a firm set of deadlines across the board, and we're working with the reviser. We'll be working with staff at the agencies and at the legislature to make sure we have enough time to process the bills. But I would expect in bigger issue areas like HHS that we really have to have something ready by tomorrow night or Wednesday morning to effectively have an opportunity to get it processed.
Mr. Ryan, from your caucuses on these plans, are they generally okay with these broad numbers? I'm curious if you run this by them.
I bet they're all thrilled.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we both had a chance to share this with our caucuses last night, and I think the sentiment from the House DFL is that we've accomplished more with Republicans in the Senate and with the governor on a budget deal than we expected to be able to do it by this point in time in the session. So I think this is a pretty significant breakthrough, and our members are appreciative that we're able to move this forward at this point in time, and I think everyone knew a compromise was going to be part of it.
So when does this come together? You said that you presented it to your members last night. Did it come together yesterday then? I know most of you were tied up with other things on Saturday.
Yeah, I would say actually the speaker and I had a final conversation. I would say probably Saturday evening is when things really came together. And to your question about sharing it with the caucus, so Republicans, our number one priority is working together to get good things done for the people of the state of Minnesota. We would have preferred to have seen more tax relief and less spending, but this is part of the compromise, and we feel that the targeted investments that are included in this agreement will make a significant impact on Minnesotans across the state, and we're looking forward to continuing to work through the process and sort of finalize the details on these bills as they get wrapped up in the coming days.
If I could say one thing, and I know it's your job to be skeptical. It's the air that you breathe on this. But just think about this. 2 weeks ago, I gave a State of the State address where I was absolutely convinced that this leadership team could get together, and many were writing off that we would get a UI deal, that we would get an essential worker, that we would talk about how we deal with COVID, what about the veterans issues that we're laying out there, whatever. We laid out a plan to take the things off the table that need to be taken off the table, come back together and work through the things and try and set a framework and then get at those things as you're hearing us say this. And again, each folks are going to message this, but let's be very clear. all Minnesotans care about safety. All Minnesotans care about public schools. All Minnesotans care about fairness in the tax system. And the results are what matter. Coming out of 2 years of crisis and having a state in this position and working together is a real positive thing. So I know you've got a lot of questions on this. This process is going to work over the next couple of days. It is not going to be without its hiccups and its glitches, and I think many of you are figuring this out. Senator Miller said it right. His caucus certainly wanted more. He'll probably have some members that will just say no because there's not enough tax cuts in it. The same thing might be true of the Democrats. The biggest thing about this is investing in that education, investing in the future, investing bipartisanly on public safety, looking long-term of how we address some of these issues of workforce development, costs for families, child care, those types of things is really good. And again, I would say this, one of the ways you can get through these negotiations in an easier manner is just to put some more money at it. This leadership team said that would be irresponsible at this time, and we need to wait and see into the next budget year with that money on the bottom line. I think, to tell you, to get this deal done is really going to take some of that from these conference committees, but I'm confident they can do it.
Governor, are you willing to call a special session now with... You've previously said you will not do it.
That's
Has
because
that changed?
deadlines are magical. Look what's happening here. They are magical, and they start to get things done. So,
What are the odds it all gets done by Sunday? You can't pass bills on Monday. What are the odds this all actually gets wrapped up?
I think it's pretty good. I feel pretty confident in this. I was confident 2 weeks ago. Again, just 2 weeks ago Sunday, we hadn't had anything. We didn't have frontline workers. We didn't have the UI system on there. We were still negotiating about COVID. None of the conference committees been put together. There was no spending deal. And we were simply doing dueling press conferences on kind of ideology. That's come together. This is a good thing. Again, I appreciate your skepticism. I also think, and again, I'm going to say it, it should be acknowledged that all of the questions you're bringing up are absolutely true. That's what makes this so very difficult. But I have confidence in the folks in that building. I have confidence in their expertise. I have confidence in the leadership in these caucuses. Again, it's very difficult. Senator Miller has to go back and talk to 34 other members who represent their constituents who are very passionate about their issues. Speaker Ortman has to go back and try and herd cats and whatever she does there. Those are things that are really hard. So they're really hard. But they did it. They did it. They got it at that point. So I would just leave you with, we'll be having, I'm sure, more of these as it goes, but the big framework was done. Again, this isn't happening anywhere else in any other state, this dynamic, against a backdrop of a lot of dysfunction, and we're really coming together. We're talking about investing in doing the co-pays for all of the federal money that will come over the next 5 to 7 years to the state of Minnesota in the largest single transportation investments in half a century. And we're talking about putting that in place so that we can start seeing. There's folks out there saying, this highway has been so dangerous, this rail crossing has been so awful, when are we ever going to get it done? They're working on that during this week to put those pieces in place so that we're able to take advantage of those federal dollars. This is a really good deal. It's a responsible deal. It's a compromise deal. It's good for Minnesotans. And as you're hearing up here, what you're going to get out of this is you're going to get relief. You're going to get some tax relief. You're going to get a bipartisan commitment around public safety. You're going to get education funding, and you're going to get a reduction in some of those costs. This is good. So thank you all, and we'll be back with you.
Outside the budget. Got to get back to work.